Modern grocery stores give us more choices than our grandparents could ever have imagined. With a few taps on a phone, dinner can arrive at the front door in minutes. But for generations before that, feeding a family often meant creating something memorable from whatever happened to be sitting in the pantry. Long before supermarket shelves became dominated by convenience foods, home cooking demanded creativity, patience, and resourcefulness. Every ingredient mattered. Every leftover had a purpose. And somehow, with only a handful of humble staples, ordinary people managed to prepare meals that filled both empty stomachs and grateful hearts. Today, we're revisiting 15 forgotten 3-ingredient meals that helped families weather hard times and, in many cases, became treasured traditions. And be sure to stay until number 1. During the hardest years of the Great Depression, apples were often too expensive or simply unavailable. Rather than giving up on a beloved dessert, resourceful home bakers turned humble pantry staples into a pie that looked and tasted surprisingly close to the real thing. Let's step back into the kitchens of another era and rediscover the recipes that proved resilience could be every bit as satisfying as abundance. Picture yourself in the spring of 1933. Money is tight. The pantry shelves are nearly bare. There's no fruit, no butter, and not even an egg left to spare. Still, supper doesn't feel complete without something sweet to end the meal. So an ingenious recipe takes shape. A simple pie built from little more than water, flour, sugar, and determination. As the pie bakes, the thin filling slowly transforms. Tiny bubbles rise beneath the crust until the mixture thickens into a smooth, delicate custard-like center, with a surprisingly comforting sweetness. Water pie became one of the best-known examples of Depression-era ingenuity, not because it was luxurious, but because it reminded families that even in the hardest years, small moments of comfort were still worth holding on to. Here's something many people have completely forgotten. Milk wasn't always poured straight from the refrigerator. In countless homes, it was gently heated until wisps of steam curled from the saucepan, filling the kitchen with its sweet, familiar aroma. Then it was poured over toasted bread, finished with a little butter, and served while everything was still wonderfully warm. For generations of American families, milk toast wasn't just breakfast. It was comfort on a difficult day. Whenever someone felt under the weather or simply needed something gentle to eat, this humble bowl often appeared on the table. Sometimes comfort didn't come from a medicine cabinet. Sometimes it came from a warm saucepan and a recipe that had been passed from one generation to the next. Across much of the American Midwest, one sight was almost impossible to miss. A cool cellar stocked with potatoes. They stored well, cost very little, and could feed an entire family through the long winter months. When temperatures dropped, a few potatoes, a chopped onion, and whatever liquid happened to be available, water or perhaps a splash of milk, were enough to begin supper. Before long, the rich aroma drifted through the house, drawing everyone toward the kitchen. Potato soup never tried to impress anyone. It simply did what the best comfort foods have always done. It warmed cold hands, it quieted hungry stomachs. And for countless families, that was more than enough. If you grew up in a factory town or a mining community after the Second World War, this sound probably brings back memories. The sharp sizzle of a thick slice of bologna hitting a blazing hot cast iron skillet. As the heat worked its magic, the edges slowly lifted and crisped, giving the pie its unmistakable homemade character that so many families recognized at a glance. Experienced home cooks knew exactly what to do. A few small cuts around the edge kept the meat lying flat, while a slice of American cheese melted over the top. Tucked between two slices of soft white bread, it became a hot, filling meal that welcomed tired workers home after a long day's shift. Sometimes the simplest sandwiches became the ones people remembered for the rest of their lives. Nobody seems to agree on exactly where this recipe began. Depending on where you grew up, it may have been called one-eyed Jack, gas house eggs, or even toad in the hole. Whatever the name, the idea was beautifully simple. A hole was pressed into the center of a slice of bread. The bread went straight into sizzling butter, and an egg was cracked neatly into the opening. As the toast turned golden and crisp, the egg cooked right along with it. Then came the best moment. The first cut through the yolk. Warm golden richness spilled across the crisp bread, transforming two everyday ingredients into a breakfast that felt surprisingly special. Long before snack cakes and packaged cookies filled kitchen cupboards, one of America's favorite after-school treats began with a single slice of bread. Fresh from the toaster, it was almost too hot to touch. That never stopped anyone. Butter melted into every corner while a generous sprinkle of cinnamon and sugar disappeared into the warmth, creating a sweet, fragrant topping that filled the entire kitchen with its unmistakable aroma. There was nothing fancy about it, no expensive ingredients, no complicated recipe, just a simple snack that could brighten an ordinary afternoon and make a child feel like something special had been waiting just for them. The simplest treats often leave the deepest memories. We've reached the halfway point, and some of our most resourceful recipes are still ahead. Now we'd love to hear from you. Did your parents, or maybe your grandparents, make any of these meals at home? Share your memories in the comments below. Every story helps preserve a little piece of culinary history that deserves to be remembered. Now let's step into a recipe that became famous far beyond the family kitchen. Long before World War II ended, cream chipped beef had already become a familiar sight in military mess halls across the United States. There was a practical reason for that. Salt-cured beef stored well, traveled easily, and could feed large numbers of hungry soldiers with very little waste. Cooks combined thin strips of dried beef with a rich white gravy before serving it over toasted bread. The soldiers, never known for polite nicknames, famously called it "shit on a shingle." The name survived. So did the recipe. When servicemen returned home, many brought the dish back with them, where it found a lasting place on breakfast tables across post-war America. On many Appalachian farms, nothing was ever wasted. Not yesterday's supper, not a handful of cornmeal, not even the last spoonful left in the pot. Cornmeal was cooked into a thick porridge during the evening and poured into a pan to cool overnight. By sunrise, it had become firm enough to slice. Each piece went straight into sizzling lard until the outside developed a beautifully crisp, golden crust, while the inside stayed soft and steaming. It was yesterday's meal transformed into today's breakfast. Simple, practical, and incredibly satisfying. Countless immigrant families arrived in America carrying recipes that required very little but delivered an extraordinary amount of comfort. Potato pancakes were one of them. Whether your family called them latkes, ribekuchen, or simply potato cakes, the ingredients rarely changed. Grated potatoes, a little onion, one egg to hold everything together. As each pancake browned in the skillet, the smell of onions and crisp potatoes spread through the house, calling everyone toward the table long before supper was ready. Meals like this proved that you didn't need expensive cuts of meat to create something everyone looked forward to eating. If you grew up in the rural South, you probably already know this unwritten rule. Nobody threw away pan drippings. Every browned bit left behind in the skillet carried flavor that was simply too valuable to waste. A little flour, a splash of milk, a steady hand with the whisk. Within minutes, those humble drippings became a thick, savory gravy, poured generously over warm biscuits or fresh bread. It wasn't just a way to stretch a meal. It was a reminder that great cooking has never depended on expensive ingredients. Sometimes it simply begins with knowing how to make the most of what you already have. Let's be honest, if someone described this sandwich today, most people probably wouldn't be in a hurry to try it. Raw onion, butter, white bread. Yet for generations of American families, this humble combination was a genuine favorite. The secret was choosing a sweet onion and slicing it paper thin. Covered with a generous layer of butter, the onion lost much of its sharpness and developed a surprisingly mellow flavor. Food writer and chef James Beard was famously fond of this simple sandwich, often praising the way good butter and sweet onions could create something unexpectedly elegant. It's another reminder that memorable food isn't always complicated. Sometimes it's simply made with care. Some of the world's most comforting meals come together in just a few moments. This is one of them. A bowl of hot rice, a little butter, a splash of soy sauce. As the butter melts into the steaming rice, the soy sauce adds a deep, savory aroma that transforms three ordinary ingredients into something remarkably satisfying. For generations, simple versions of this dish have been enjoyed as an inexpensive comfort meal. particularly in Japan, where warm rice has long been at the heart of everyday cooking. Quick to prepare, easy on the budget, and proof that comfort doesn't always require a long list of ingredients. Serve this to someone today, and you might get a puzzled look. But decades ago, this simple snack was a welcome source of energy for children who spent their days outdoors. From sunrise until supper, soft bread was covered with cool, creamy lard and finished with a generous sprinkle of coarse sugar. The rich fat balanced the sweetness in a way that many people still remember with surprising affection. At a time when candy was an occasional luxury, treats like this felt every bit as special. Sometimes the sweetest memories came from the simplest pantry shelves. Before we reveal our final recipe, we have to stop in Germany for a dish that has endured for generations. Schmalzbrot may look simple, but it tells the story of rural kitchens where nothing useful was ever wasted. A thick slice of hearty rye bread was generously spread with rendered pork lard, often mixed with crispy cracklings left from the rendering process. A pinch of coarse salt was all it needed. Every bite delivered rich flavor, satisfying texture, and enough energy to help farmers through long days of physical work. There was no decoration, no unnecessary extras, just honest food prepared with respect for every ingredient. And finally, the recipe that still surprises people nearly a century later. An apple pie without apples. During the darkest years of the Great Depression, fresh fruit wasn't always available, especially in cities and during the winter months. But families weren't willing to give up one of America's most cherished desserts. At the heart of this remarkable filling were three humble ingredients: crushed saltine crackers, sugar, and whipped egg whites. As the pie baked, the crackers softened inside the sweet filling, creating a tender texture that many people found surprisingly reminiscent of cooked apples. It wasn't meant to fool gourmet chefs. It was created to bring a little joy to families doing their very best with what they had. Years later, Ritz crackers would introduce their own famous version, helping preserve the idea for future generations. But long before that, resourceful home cooks had already proven an unforgettable lesson. Ingenuity can be every bit as powerful as abundance. Looking back, it's remarkable how much our grandparents accomplished with so little. These weren't meals created to impress dinner guests. They weren't designed for cookbooks or restaurant menus. These dishes remained on family tables for years because they delivered exactly what people needed: good food that never let them down. Every slice of bread, every potato, every spoonful of gravy carried a lesson that reached far beyond the food itself. Waste as little as possible. Share what you have, and never underestimate what a determined home cook can create with a few humble ingredients. Today, many of these recipes have quietly disappeared from everyday life, not because they stopped tasting good, but because the world around them changed. The generations who relied on these meals grew older. Family recipes were tucked away in worn recipe boxes, and little by little the stories behind them faded from memory. Fortunately, they don't have to disappear forever. Every recipe remembered, every family story shared, every old photograph preserved, keeps a small piece of history alive for the next generation.